Oh my gosh. Okay, let's try this again. Welcome to the Lovecraft Tapes. I am Jeremy, your keeper of arcane lore, and tonight we will be discussing Chapter 6, The Big Uneasy, answering questions posed by listeners, and checking in with each other about how the scenario unfolded. With me are your investigators of the unknown, Matt, who played Private Detective Dan Williams.
Where am I again? I thought I was out stealing stuff. Never mind.
Brian, who played both Special Agent Jack Whiteside and Dr. Hubert Pretorius Loveland.
At least I got a new set of teeth. That was one positive thing that happened through that event.
And Gabe, who played Special Agent Roy Arroyo.
I like Scott Dorward better.
How is everyone doing tonight? What are we eating and drinking?
I am eating oxygen.
I'm drinking water. It's exciting.
Water. It's exciting.
I'm eating Dove Men Plus Care Extra Fresh Myco Moisture, and I am drinking WD-40.
Nice.
Okay, so it's a huffing session.
Well, I figured since this is more or less close to our anniversary, I got the Stone anniversary, 22nd anniversary Animatter Double IPA.
Stretching out a
Nice.
bit, aren't you?
Mmm.
And it's deliciously gold.
Anniversary.
Oh, it's urine. Oh.
That is tasty. The No Haze Double IPA. Okay, whatever. All right, well, before we begin, we do need to thank some folks, our Patreon supporters.
You're welcome.
At the top of the heap is our revered cultist, Robert P., a.k.a. the Demir Lobotomist.
Among the plant?
Yeah, not botanist, but lobotomist.
It's just a botanist in Spanish, though, isn't it?
It's the botanist.
Among the professors are Brittany D., John I., Olda P., Eric Z., Eric M., Eric G., Mitch L., Tom D., and Matthew H. And rounding out our student roster are Milka Mix, DW, Dante R., Wooter V., Malambra 57, and of course, Modoc from Rolling Boxcars. Thank you to everyone who has donated to the production of this podcast. If you want to help us improve future episodes, please consider becoming a patron at patreon.com/Lovecraft Tapes, where we will give you Patron tequila.
Oh, snap.
See how I did that?
It was me.
Kind of a save, but
Yeah.
Whatever.
Yummy.
So we're just going to basically take a nice leisurely stroll through Chapter 6 and ask each other questions. And I've got a few questions here from our subreddit, so let's get right to the discussion. I do have one to start us off here. It is a two-part question, guys. So it is. What is the best General Mills cereal, and why is it Blueberry?
That's a tough question.
It's Booberry, and because it's Booberry.
I'm sorry, Brian, you're wrong. The answer is Blueberry.
Shit.
Yeah.
Actually, all right.
I
have a lot to say about this. I have a lot of opinions about this topic.
They
First
didn't
of all,
already make it in the podcast?
Oh, don't worry about it. It's Count Chocula, and the only reason you think it's Booberry is because you're a loser neckbeard who listens to what the media tells you. Make your own decisions for once.
Booberry.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, Blueberry wins it by a landslide.
Handily.
Not a landslide. They got 1 of 4. 25% isn't a landslide.
Okay, we'll meet in the middle and say Frankenberry.
Ugh.
No.
Ugh.
Hey, see? Common ground. No and a no.
That's gross. Yeah, Blueberry is definitely the best.
You're 100% wrong on every level.
All right, let's take some Reddit questions. So, Wyckoff H1 asked, why Call of Cthulhu? What about it do you like most, and what about it would you change? This is interesting.
Ooh.
So, I go ahead, Brian. Why don't you answer away?
Yeah, I think what I like about it most is the supernatural unknown. You never know what's going to come out of the well, or what's behind a door, or hidden in that barn. You know what I mean? You just
Mhm.
you don't know what you're going to run into, and that can be exhilarating and terrifying all at the same time. And I like horror, so I think that
Would
makes it fun.
would you say
No,
that Call of Cthulhu
horror.
is like a box of chocolates then?
Yeah, except it's blue and it's a berry.
That's a good answer. How about you, Matt?
Well, I'm
I
pretty
don't
sure
like
I started playing Call of Cthulhu because that's what we were playing.
You would have been fine with Pathfinder or
Oh yeah,
Vampire the
D&D.
Masquerade.
Yeah.
Or,
Vampire is awesome. So
it
Vampire
is.
the Masquerade.
both of those are
Yeah.
awesome. I have both of their manuals, so screw
Nice.
off.
I bet it's fun. I like being a vampire.
Sure. I mean, I didn't really know a whole lot about it before we started playing. But now that we've gotten 60 episodes into this, well, when we're recording this, not recording, broadcasting, whatever you want to say, I've really come to enjoy it a lot more than I thought I would. Well, don't get me wrong, D&D is great for the fact that you're basically a superhero and you can do a lot of stuff. I think the fact that no matter how far into the game you go, your character is still just human. It means you have to get really creative at times, and you really have to kind of think things through and be a little more methodical. You can't just Leroy Jenkins every single scenario out there and hope you continue on.
is there anything that you would change about it?
What would I change about it?
No.
I'd like to be a superhero that has
Yeah.
swords. Oh, wait.
Hmm.
Finds paths.
I still think, as much as I've looked into this, I still think there are a couple of the skills on the list that are either ill-defined or overlap in one way or another that I think you could possibly get rid of. Like you and me, when I was making up Detox, had a lengthy conversation on what the difference between electronics and electronic repair is, because they're both pretty much the same. And from the descriptions I read, I had a really hard time telling what they were and why I would want one over the other, or if I needed both.
Yeah.
So there's
Yeah.
definitely some room for improvement in terms of skills. And
Yeah, I think part of that is when we compare it to, like, I don't know, not Pathfinder specifically, but let's take like Dungeons and Dragons for instance. It takes place in a fantasy world where the time period is sort of irrelevant. Does that make sense?
Right, yeah.
I mean, because sort of like Skyrim is Skyrim. It doesn't matter
Yeah.
if they say it's, whatever BC. It
Yeah.
doesn't matter. So your skills are the same. But I think when you're dealing with like real life, quote unquote, then you have time periods to deal with when certain technologies didn't exist. So they're trying to provide skills and rules that sort of overlap on purpose to cover bases depending on where you land in the time period, I think.
That makes sense, yeah. Because if
Right.
you're in the 50s, you don't have cell phones, and that's
That's an interesting thing, because when I started Call of Cthulhu, when I first picked up the rule book, I was really enamored because I loved the movies, I loved the literature. But when I picked up the rule book, they basically were like, you're going to play in the 1920s or 30s or 40s and maybe the 50s. And that's kind of it. And we're talking back in the early 80s. you
Right.
know? And I just couldn't like wrap my head around it slightly. It seemed kind of boring to me.
yeah.
And they've done a really good job in refining the rule sets to make it a little bit more streamlined. I find it really easy now to like all of the different like combat roles and chase roles. It makes more sense to me now.
Yeah.
But also back then there weren't cell phones, right?
Right.
And so there wasn't a whole dearth of technology that we have today. And I think they've done a good job of sort of augmenting the skill sets that were back in the 80s to incorporate and include those things. But I do agree with Matt that we actually had to sit down and look at the rules, the exact descriptions of those two skills,
Right.
try to figure out, okay, this means this and this means this, and so that he could make a wise decision and fleshing out his character. So that's a good point.
Very cool.
How about you, Gabe?
Oh, I've always, first of all, H.P. Lovecraft is probably my favorite author ever. So I've played the Lovecraft tapes, a role playing game, in some shape or form since I was about 8 years old. I've just always played it on pen and paper, so that was where the learning curve was when we started this podcast, was learning to play it on a computer. And there was some differences in skills just because of how we laid it out. But I mean, the thing I always like about it is just how easy it is to piss other players off. Like, I like to put D&D ideals into the Lovecraft universe and just try and be a thug and just ignore detective work because it changes the story and makes it just a lot of fun. Because I love the detective work, but mostly I love the monsters, and I want to draw the monsters out if I possibly can, though it's been hard in this scenario, which is probably okay to minimize them because we don't need to have new characters every 3 episodes. But,
So, okay,
we need them every 2 episodes.
Right. Well, you always have to get like to that weird. There's always like little minor things, sort of like in the Big Uneasy, for instance. And I meant to preface this, but let's be careful about talking about Chapter 7.
Yes.
Let's pretend it doesn't exist yet, because there's some things that happen in Chapter 7 that people who are just finishing up Chapter 6 don't know about yet. But if I understand you correctly, Gabe, it sort of sounds like you I don't know, but you didn't really seem like in Chapter 6 that you preferred combat necessarily. I mean, you took to it okay.
Only because that's the character I'm playing right now. I'm playing a wuss. I mean, if I was playing someone else, I'm trying to play it differently than I used to for this podcast, just because since people are listening to it, it's more entertaining if you get longevity in a character. Historically, when I played it with all my friends, I was the guy who had new characters like every 2 or 3 sessions. Because I would act like Roy, but I would act like Roy when I'm like faced with a monster. Like literally, Cthulhu would be there, and I'd be like, "Hey, screw you, bro," and I just get murdered instantly.
Squash. But it's safe to say that you would prefer, like, if there was one thing you could change about it, or what about it would you change? Maybe you would lessen the sort of detective work or investigatory aspects and heighten the encounters.
I don't know about that. It's because I do love the detective work. It's what makes Cthulhu. What I would change is I would rely less on human settings, I guess, and be more in the mythos all the time. Because I have in the past I've played somewhere like we get sucked up into like the Necronomicon, which is like Cthulhu's world, and just dealing with all those creatures all the time. And like my favorite one I ever did was we ended up in the Cthulhu mythos world, but it was like Earth, where there was peaceful NPCs there that were all freaked out like we were the foreign ones, because to them they viewed us as the same thing that we view them in our world, and they were all like attacking us and like scared of us, and eventually we ended up like meeting in their towns and stuff, and that was awesome.
That's cool.
I like to be more involved with the mythos.
Nice. Cool. Brian, I don't think you answered that. Is there anything that you would change? I know you're a big proponent of wanting to do more combat in Chapter 6.
I really enjoyed the speed and the combat, even though I ended up with a character that wasn't really good at fighting. But it was real fun to see it all play out, and to be, it really depends on your roles at that point as to what your life, what's going to happen next. I thought that was really exciting. The one thing I would change is to not get shot in the face. That's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Although the chase mechanic, that's the only time we did it, so that's all I have to draw from. But it did seem a little like even if you get a good roll and you're moving well, it didn't matter. Like the thing was going to happen regardless.
Mm-hmm.
That's the only thing that bugged me about it is you had no way to, like in real life, you could slam on your brakes or you could swerve, or you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But again, that's the only thing I have to draw from is that one instance. So if we have a chase again, it'll be interesting to see how that unfolds in the season.
Yeah. But that basically came down to how well you were at drive auto. That's slamming on the brakes or swerving.
Correct.
And the it just happened to be that all of you guys sucked at drive.
Well, yeah, because we never drive anywhere.
Yeah. It was sort of an overlooked thing that even when I set up the chase, I wasn't thinking like, okay, who's going to be driving or who's going to be.
Right.
I just figured you guys, somebody had some good drive.
Yeah. No.
Or
Because most of the time our travel is, hey, let's go here. Okay, you hop in a car, you're there.
Yeah.
Right.
Or we catch a plane, or we take a cab.
Yeah, the only time it would come into play is if there is a chase issue.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and it's like, do you invest points into something that might come in handy eventually?
right.
Or do you want to
Jack,
allocate points to something like?
I'm just never driving again.
Or do you want to take those points in character creation and allocate them to something that you're going to use, every single episode, like a spot hidden or a listen or a computer or a library use?
And it did sort of highlight the fact that as you guys had progressed, this was chapter 6, so it's you had 5 chances to, not Jack though, right? Because you were playing Samantha.
Yeah.
But a lot of you had so many chances to advance your character to a certain period, and it was just funny that all 3 of you were basically
at the base level
because you're all thinking that, I'm going to put mine in spot hidden.
Yeah.
So rather than so for instance, the character I created to be in Matt's Halloween episode, spoiler alerts coming up. I purposely chose things that were opposite you guys.
Ooh, nice.
Because I wanted to be the yin to the yang, and at least try to cover some bases that you guys had already covered. So fuck that.
Yeah.
I did it more for the role playing.
Oh, good. That'll be interesting.
Because that's kind of what it's all about. Anyway, to Matt's earlier point, we're playing humans in a human world, a modern world, and it's not like we're level 20, paladins or anything.
Yeah, right.
And so you might as well enjoy
200 hit points. Go nuts.
Exactly. You might as well enjoy the role play because sooner or later you're going to get a shotgun to the face.
Light's going to happen.
Yeah, exactly right.
I still can't believe I survived.
Not if I run from every fight forever.
I was so lucky.
That's the other thing is, for being humans, the fact that Dan has survived 6 chapters. I've nearly died like at least once every chapter, possibly.
Pretty much,
I just always
shot in the gut,
right up to the edge, and nothing has managed to push me over that point until I actually die.
Well, that's actually leads into a question I had for Matt. Why is Dan so awesome?
Because I'm just really good at character design.
Luck.
Rolls.
But I mean, why has he prospered? And I mean, he's had some bad things happen to him over the course of 6 chapters essentially. But why? What do you attribute that to other than luck?
Other than luck, like I said, I didn't know a whole lot about Call of Cthulhu when we started, and seeing as Dan was my first character, I remember doing some research, and a lot of people saying, "Oh, characters die a lot. People die all the time. Don't get attached to people." So I purposely built my first character to be kind of stockier and a little hardier, so I knew if I made a mistake, I might have a little bit of wiggle room in terms of survivability and being able to fight back. So I purposefully built Dan as a combat-centric character. He had really high points into things like, firearms, handguns, and brawling, and he could intimidate people. And, with me giving him an army background, I gave him extra points in things like, climbing and swimming and jumping, which I think I used the climb roll once in the last chapter. Mm-hmm. But at the time, I wasn't going, okay, I'm going to use this skill, and this skill all the time investigating. I was thinking, what kind of skills would give me that survivability edge, would give me that cushion. in terms of maybe being able to just eke it out 1 or 2 more episodes because I didn't want to, lose my first character in the first week or, the first chapter or whatnot.
Well, I think there's more to it though. And I would venture that it's also the backstory. We've had the opportunity to spend 6 chapters, 50 some odd 50 some odd episodes to get to know Dan, and we fleshed him out to be multidimensional beyond just this thing. So, I mean, obviously you're breaking up with Sam and all that stuff.
Sam broke up with him.
Well, I mean, not really. He left the voicemail, right?
Yeah, the drunk voicemail while we were.
She was done months earlier.
Texas.
That might be, but she was too preoccupied to actually end it.
True.
She just sort of lost interest because of other reasons. But anyways, but it was Dan who sent that voicemail.
Yeah. And actually, fun fact: when we first started that scenario, I had planned to make it a letter, not a voicemail. But I either forgot or we ran out of time because I was going to have him write the letter and then put his engagement ring in the envelope and tape it to the outside of the study door as kind of like a "Hey, I'm done" type thing. But
I love you. See you for dinner. Oh.
Yeah, and as Matt, if you recall, I was like, no, that's got to be a voicemail.
Yeah,
and that's how we came up with that
which
extra.
I think was fantastic.
Episode. Well, yeah, clearly people loved it. I loved it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So,
the one that came out at the end was really good. What people didn't hear was the dozen other times I did it where I was like, it's not good enough.
Take 2.
Yeah.
Take
That's
23.
one of the things, especially with the tales and the commercials, is at some point I was just like, I just got to put this out there because you can obsess over that one thing forever and you're never going to think it's good enough. So you just kind of have to do what you can and then push it out there to see how people react and to see how they feel about those kinds of things.
Exactly. So, okay, cool. That answers my question. Matt, why don't you pose a question for us?
Okay.
Pose it with the Barbie.
So far in the Lovecraft tapes, we've done a good bit of travel, whether it was, being in LA in the 1950s, up in the Northeast, going through Massachusetts, or being down in Louisiana or off to Texas. Is there anywhere that either, Jeremy, you would like to host a scenario, or Brian or Gabe, where would you like to see the story take us in terms of travel? Do you want to stay in the US? Do you want to go to Europe? Do you want to spend some time in South America? Where would you really like to take your characters, or where would you like to see the series go?
Yeah, you guys answer that because
wow.
Any ideas?
We should go to Australia. I'm just saying that'd be beautiful, Go to Australia, just hang out.
Keep an eye out for drop bears.
Just a whole scenario of you guys just chilling
out. Yep. Mysteries coming out. You hear people talking in the background. I don't know where she went. All I found is this scarf and some blood. And we just sipping and we ignore it all.
Little umbrella drinks.
Yeah. We're just out in the outback. There's no beach. We just sit there drinking. I don't know. It would be cool to go to another country. I think that would be fun. It'd be a lot of research for the keeper, though. To you know what I mean, local streets and all that stuff.
What was that, Gabe?
It's more of a time, but we can go through time. I want Roy Arroyo or Roy Arroyo's ancestors who act exactly like him to party with the Vikings.
So sort of like a Phil and Ned adventure, is that what you're saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Excellent.
Patreon. Support Patreon and I'll write it.
That would be cool.
Nice.
Time travel again.
Well, I like all those ideas. I have no I have a plan, but I also am utilizing a published scenario currently that basically had to be set sort of where we're setting it, but I think definitely in the future I'm sort of bursting. Well, I want to do one of two things, and that would be either get out and explore more of the world, have you guys explore more of the world, or flashback adventures. Well, we do that, Keith. We do flashback adventures in our Halloween and Christmas episodes.
Yeah.
Where we typically play younger versions of ourselves. But I think too that would be a nice little. I think like flashback adventures would be excellent. I thought about this actually, derailing my own conversation here, but that's what this is all about. Is I thought, how fun would it be for a Patreon perk to do a single adventure with just one of you, one at a time?
Oh, just do
that would be
one-on-one.
Just do a Dan adventure.
Yeah, that
just
would be
do
neat.
a Jack Whiteside or whatever. And to Keith's question or comment would be, that'd be I could do a young Dan. I could do a young Roy.
Royal families through the centuries coming soon.
Do like Arroyo just as he's getting started in the FBI,
Right.
or what was that seminal moment that sort of triggered your investigator's interest in the occult or whatever? Like for instance, the previous Dan, 1950s Dan was set into Hitler's compound or whatever and encountered this thing. That'd be kind of a cool deal,
Yeah.
And I thought too, like doing like a sort of Genesis adventure for the investigator individually, and then inviting other people, either Patreon members, patrons, or guest players to play NPCs to help that character. So we would exclude the other guys,
right,
the other cast members, but then do that for each thing. I thought that'd be kind of cool.
That would be really cool. Yeah.
So that was one idea, and to expound sort of on Keith's thing. Going abroad would be amazing. I think it'd be a lot of fun. I do have a great idea for an abroad scenario that I think I would like to have come up in the next maybe chapter 8 or 9. But to Gabe's point, the time tripping thing I think would be kind of fun if that occurred in Arkham, and I think that's sort of where we could have some fun, where because there's a lot of Dreams of the Witch House. There's a lot of literature already in Lovecraft's stable where we could sort of bring that stuff in and have you guys go traverse to the Salem witch trials or something. I don't know.
Plus, then you have the anchor of the town, which is the common theme whenever you're at. That's nice. You have like Blaine Manor's been there for 200 years. You know what I mean? You could. Hey,
well, according to Dan, the house was moved from its original location.
That's true.
Yeah,
I just re-listened to every single episode. So I remember. I know everything now.
We should have like a master wiki on all this, just in case we do time travel, so we can remember.
Yeah, trust me, it'll get confusing real quick.
Yeah, that's the other thing is you have to be really careful with time travel, because if you jump way to the past and then way to the future and back to the present and a little forward or a little back, and you do it too many times or too quickly, you can lose people really, really quickly.
Yep.
That's right. You accidentally kill a butterfly in the Mesozoic area, and then there's Delicate Sound of Thunder. So there's a Pink Floyd album out of it. So
I have a question.
God forbid.
For Jeremy.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Bum, bum, bum. How did you handle the loss of a main character that possibly the scenario was themed around right off the bat?
Anybody you're thinking about?
Losing Rosalita really hurt.
You sort of took that into
Rosita?
Was it Rosita?
There's something in there.
No, you have to take that into effect, or at least into consideration that this is a possibility, because we are playing Call of Cthulhu.
Right.
Obviously, I'm sure you know by now after so many chapters that, well, number one, I never fudge a dice roll, right? So if something happens, something happens.
Yep.
But I tend to, favor role playing and story over the dice rolls, so that even when somebody like Roy burns in a jail cell, pretty much to death, or within near thing, then it's like I once I had a different idea for the story after he was taken out of it, then we didn't bother with you probably remember us rolling to see like if he healed or not.
Right.
He was just off to the side.
Yep.
And that's because when Gabe and I started talking about like, okay, what can we do with this scenario? How do you feel about this? How do you feel about this scenario? We sort of arrived at something we were both comfortable with. Then of course that fuels into chapter 6, where Samantha is inside Roy after essentially having saved him from the fire and healing his body supernaturally. Then I think that was the right choice to do that for the story rather than now. In the case of Jack Whiteside, clearly I didn't expect that to happen.
Yeah.
But the dice rolls said, yeah, you took that many points of damage to the face. So let's have fun with it. And you weren't dead, but
right.
It took some of the emotional oomph, obviously, out of the Leah Whiteside connection.
Right.
And I really struggled whether or not to keep her in, because I could have like just simply excluded her as a zombie.
Right. It actually worked though.
It did. Well, it also
nobody knew.
Right.
Except the listeners.
the listeners, and if and then of course I explained it in the epilogue that I just released yesterday. And so, the listener, but it's a different thing. It would have been more impactful if Jack had stumbled into that cavern with the rest of the people and saw that his sister was a zombie now. Just like, but we achieved that effect by substituting some of the other ones for Roy's people.
Yes.
So I really toyed with making one of them Greta.
That wouldn't have bothered me.
Well, not you, but maybe Roy.
Maybe Raymond.
Maybe Raymond.
I love how Gabe played that too, by the way. He was like all in. Those were his best friends, and he was ready to climb right up on there and be done with it.
Yep.
I got about 5 friends in this game, so I gotta like actually make them matter.
Gabe, you had about 5 friends.
Oh, yeah.
Now most of them are dead.
Not like all of them are dead.
Yeah, pretty much.
Well, undead.
Oh yeah. We can still be zombie friends though, so
zombie friends, activate. Does that answer your question, Brian?
Yeah, it does. Thank you.
All right, Gabe, how about you? You got a question for us?
I got a two-parter for Jeremy.
Oh.
What kind of sick bastard are you that you killed Bugsy? And part 2 is, what was the moment that we did throughout any point that you just wanted to punch one of us in the face over us doing?
Okay, so those are valid questions. That's two-parter. So what kind of sick bastard? So the fact is, I loved playing Bugsy.
Yeah.
It was one of the characters that I could actually remember what he sounded like from episode to episode, so I could keep playing him. And I just sort of liked him being like the sidekick guy, but I also knew that the emotional impact of him becoming would be much more compelling, and it would Sharon Skinner is one. Okay, fine. Who's the third one?
Petunia.
That was a throwaway. Honestly, that was like
not to me. To me, it wasn't.
Yeah, but Bugsy was the
Rosita too. You killed. Well, she didn't die.
Oh, no, she's not dead.
She's still good.
She's missing though. Sorry.
Spoilers, man.
Anyways, so yeah, Bugsy was tough to do away with, and I kind of regret that. Yeah, I do regret that.
Don't worry, young Roy Arroyo and Bugsy adventure.
Right. Exactly.
That would be cool.
Wouldn't it be fun? And what was your second question?
Has
punching.
there been a moment that you just wanted to punch one of us in the face? And Brian and Matt, you can answer this too if there's been a moment.
Well, so in earlier episodes for sure, but you mostly weren't around then. So in chapter 6 specifically, I thought even looking back at it, I think there was like a few moments where it always boils down to miscommunication. I'm not communicating clearly what should be happening. And you know, and also with the listeners probably recognize by now is that, you know, we're all in different moods. We all work days, you know, like, so we can, our performances can vary from episode to episode,
Right.
but also our attitudes too. So I might come in feeling really great and upbeat and like, hey, we're going to have a fucking great time. Other times I come in, I'm like, what is going to even happen tonight? I have no idea where this is going to go. How do I pat it? And if I get frustrated, then I'm not communicating properly. And then you guys are responding in a way that is confusing to me because I'm not communicating. So it's that whole thing. But I will say chapter 6 was pretty good. The only time I ever get a little miffed is when we have technical issues, and that's on me because I should be more. It's inevitable that we're going to have technical issues,
right?
And I need to be a little bit more calm about that. But because I'm doing all of the broadcast and everything else, I'm kind of like, you know, you get to a point where you're like, just shut the fuck up, guys. I have to take care of this. You know,
it bugs me too because we want to help, and make sure that it's going to be successful, and that we can help
shooters too, which is not helpful. So we're like, well, what if we do this? Okay, what if we just
try that.
Now we're just burning up time.
Have you tried turning it off and back on again?
Exactly.
Somebody check the internet box.
No, but beyond that, I don't think anybody like did something dumb or like we were able to pivot no matter what.
Right.
And because we're always trying to do yes and for the most part, then you guys take it off into places I didn't see coming, but it's almost always for fun. Yeah, that's it.
That was a little less TMZ than I was hoping for.
Well, what about these guys? Don't they want to punch somebody, including me?
There's a lot of times when I wanted to punch Roy in the face.
The one time, I don't think it was in this chapter though. Was it that when I lost my voice? I don't remember if it was this chapter.
It was.
I was extremely mad at myself because I had so many things that I wanted to say and be part of it. And when you're sick, you're sick. There's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah.
But it's so frustrating. You feel like you're letting everybody down. You know what I mean? Even though you guys understand you're my friends and all that. But that was the one part that really frustrated me, that I could not get out the performance and be part of the I just
you know, it is funny, like you know, they say like adrenaline helps performance. Even if you're like deathly sick sometimes and you take the stage, you can get through the performance and then puke afterwards. It's funny, you go back and listen to that episode and you start off rough, but then after about 15-20 minutes you're almost back to normal. And then towards the end, you sort of peter out, but you actually sound better.
In my brain, just from remembering it, I didn't contribute, is what it seemed like to me.
Well, you know, the thing is, we have technical issues, or we have something come up last minute where you know Brian is sick all of a sudden, or Gabe has to work, or whatever. So in those particular instances, you know, it's like, okay, well, how do we get around this? Can we go on? Okay, so sure, we could just minimize Brian's speeches, or at least try, divert all of that to the other guys, and have them carry the load. And then also, when Gabe was gone, we were just like, okay, let's just cut him out, and he's in a position where he's sort of in a trance,
right? So
we can minimize his involvement.
Yeah,
that was an absolute college kid mess up when that one happened. My friends were like, "You want to go party?" I was like, "Yeah." I wake up with 15 missed phone calls, and an editorial.
Who were they from?
All you guys, and an editorial note to anyone that ever notices a show where me and Matt just seem exhausted. That'd be because I work nights.
Neon nights. Okay, does that answer your question, Gabe?
Yeah.
Sweet. All right. Well, I got a question here for Brian. Actually, this is a good one. Was it more fun to play Hubert than Jack?
Okay. And I've thought about this quite a bit. Jack is one of my favorite characters so far that I've been able. I've only played 3, but he's probably my favorite just because I had the experience on how to build him and was able to do the background that really tied me to that character. But the Doctor was so much fun to play just because I could basically be an outlandish personality and annoy people and be outspoken, and it was a lot of fun to play him. It was sad to have to give him up and go back to Jack a little bit. But now that I'm back in Jack, it's fun again. So yeah, real in there. Deep in there.
Yeah, the reason I asked that was because it's when you take over Hubert after Jack's terrible accident. It's quite apparent that you're having a blast.
Oh, it was so much fun. It was so much fun. And here's the funny part. I was angry to the point of wanting to throw my headset down and storm off, angry that he got shot in the face. I had so many plans. I mean, this is where he's from, and we're having this adventure, and then I can't play that character. But as soon as I was able to develop the Doctor and get him and find out who he was and have that the silly side, that it really helped a lot. And it was fun to be able to move forward like that and have a fun character to play. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, he was quite a weirdo.
Yes.
Yes, he was. It's funny too because having gone back and listened to every single episode, I went back to when you guys first meet Hubert and how different he sounds than how you played him.
Oh yeah,
I played him with like a slight German,
right,
like Dr. Caligari kind of thing.
And I actually practiced all different types of accents and voices and stuff, and I was like, this just is most natural, and I can draw it out, and that will annoy people. So that's how it developed. I just pulled it out of my hat.
I think my favorite gag was don't fall for it, Daniel. It's just a rouge. A rouge. Oh my god!
I have a question.
Red often used in lipstick.
Okay, let's take a question here from Reddit. Bite of Pear. No, not yours. Bite of Pear says, "Hi guys, it's been a minute since I recently came back to work from maternity leave, and able to catch up on my favorite podcast." Oh, thank you.
Which one?
Yeah, which one is it?
We'd love to listen.
Is it Drunks and Dragons? Because I love those guys. It's so funny. A couple of comments and questions. Roy should really call Mrs. Arroyo more to keep the home fires burning, or at least make sure it's not burning down the house by the triple terrors.
Only triple?
Gabe, how do you imagine the missus handles the family while Roy is away, and how the heck does she rationalize his injuries when he returns?
So how I imagine she handles them is that she just doesn't, because it seems like I'm doing most of the parenting. Because I get home and they're all just running around doing whatever. Rhonda's asking to go out on dates and borrow cars, and it's pretty awful. I mean, she's a good cook, and she does that for him. I'll give him that. I'll give her that much credit. And what was the second part?
How do you think that she rationalizes your injuries when you return?
Greta and Roy have been together since high school, so she knew him when he was even stupider than he is now. This takes some real life inspiration. She knew him when he was gooning around with all his friends, jumping off trees, doing press people, and doing backflips off roofs into pools. So she's seen him get hurt a lot worse than he is getting now. So I like to imagine after all these years, she's just gotten numb to it and is like, "Oh, what'd you do this time?"
So when you come home, she's like, "Johnny Knoxville, what did you do this time?"
Yeah, exactly. Welcome
like that. Home, jackass.
All right. Bite of Pear also says, "I miss Jack, but I am enjoying HP. Would you go over some of the mechanics of spellcraft in Call of Cthulhu? As I spit.
Spellcraft.
Spellcraft. Too much beer. So we haven't done hardly anything with spellcraft.
Right.
Basically, you use magic points, is my understanding, to cast these spells. And when you're out of magics, and I think we covered this in like way back in chapter 3 or 4 as a Cthulhu rules for Samantha when she had to was considering casting those spells that she had learned. Talk to Ghast or speak with Ghast or summon Ghast?
It was summon.
Summon Ghast and
summon Ghast. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we've just never got into it. The characters have never really magic points, power spells, Keith says. And that's true. Yeah. So but I also remember saying that when you run out of magic points, then it starts taking from your hit points, which is a real interesting thing. But we've just never really had to go into it too much. I guess the closest we have come is Hubert decided to stock himself with that magic crucifix, which seemed cool. I mean, that's fine. It was almost like a religious icon or item. So there was no real spell crafting or spell casting going on.
Right.
So.
Not to mention the only time a character has ever actually had a spell was Sam way back in chapter 3. None of our other characters have ever even like found a spell book or tried to learn any kind of magic. Right. We just haven't, whether we just, keep blatantly ignoring it or by whatever happenstance we happen to cruise right past it. We just haven't really brushed up against a whole lot of magic and spell crafting in our run.
Yep. And that's true. I think pretty much all of the I think the closest you would have come is My Life. I believe that if you had studied that book as part of the possession and all that, I believe there was also a chance to learn some spells.
We were too scared to look at it.
Yeah, you guys never cracked it open, so you were just too frightened, which is actually wise.
Yeah.
So it all depends. Again, it boils down to role playing, whether or not your character is, if you decide your character is going to be fascinated with spells in any way, shape, or form, or the potential to learn stuff. Clearly, Samantha did, but sort of off screen.
Yeah,
she started learning those things. So to answer your question, Bite a Pear, we haven't been forced to deal with it in any way, shape, or form as a general recourse. But I'm hoping maybe in the future we can sort of change that. But clearly it wasn't chapter 6. So thank you for those questions.
Mm-hmm.
All right, you guys got anything?
Yeah, I have a question for Gabe. Hi, Gabe.
Right.
How worried were you when HP was on his knees trying to put the heads back on these decapitated bodies by the pit when the blood spraying everywhere? How worried were you that we were just all going to end right there?
I was fairly worried, especially.
I could hear it in your voice when you were playing Roy. That was like one of the first times where you were concerned about the other character and getting them out of where they were.
General rule of thumb for me is to keep moving forward. And when something like that happens and we get delayed and can't keep moving forward, I generally worry that something's going to come and get us right then and there. Especially with now my history of being burnt alive and having to play a dumbass character. I don't want to lose Roy, especially off my own terms, just because this is the longest I've ever made a character last in any kind of a role-playing game I've ever played in my entire life.
Yeah.
And I just have so much fun playing him, though I do know that the name of the game is that I'm going to lose him. I definitely was not ready right then and there, especially since so much had gone wrong with the other characters.
I was a little worried that you were going to just boot me into the pit, to be honest with you.
Answers at the bottom of the pit. Okay, here you
I
go.
Was like, it is Roy, so he could either shoot me or...
I need to get back to shooting people more. It's not happening enough.
More gunplay. Sort of to piggyback on that, I did have a similar question. Excuse me. Do you guys think that we went too far with the concubine creatures and Hubert's rape?
I was uncomfortable. Did you listen to it again? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But I think the way the creatures reacted, it wasn't anything malicious. It wasn't like they were purposely trying to hurt me or the character. But and I think that's what made the difference, honestly, is that it was almost like they were just confused creatures and they were trying to help in their own way. I don't know what that way was, but
the back way.
The back way, yeah. Next time use lube. No. I think that's what made the difference is realizing that they didn't really have any power. They were also trapped in there. Like I was trapped in there. You know what I mean?
Yeah. But you had to kind of wait an episode to find that out.
Exactly. And that was very tough for me as a player because I'm like, I've got to get these things away from me. I got to kill these things with my bare hands, I guess. And then I'm naked. I got to figure this out. Where my first thoughts is I've got to survive. And to do that, I've got to, cut my way out of here. But luckily, you could tell when I first started, I made those reactions, and then the reaction from the creatures, it really changed my demeanor, and I was able to draw back and get out of it a little more gracefully than murdering all of them.
Matt, Gabe, what do you think? Did we go too far?
I don't think that you can go too far, so I don't necessarily... I'm not really a good measuring stick because I think all things are, if it's fiction, it's okay to talk about because if you're offended, don't listen to it. It's just a story. So I'm probably not a great measuring stick for the average person. But
that's what your girlfriend says.
Oh.
Yeah, I don't think we went too far.
Matt?
As weird as this is, I agree with Gabe on this. I think when it comes to the realm of fiction and like storytelling like this, that there really shouldn't be any topics that are above reproach, or that we should be able to people say hard no, you're not ever allowed to talk like that, because a lot of times stories like, even if the ones we're making up are a great way to start conversations about subjects, and a lot of times storytelling is the way we begin to process things and understand things, and having a way to kind of even tangentially explore some of these subjects that a lot of people are afraid of in real life is a really great way to not only bring light onto some shady subjects that people may avoid, but it's a great way to potentially educate some people in certain instances.
Anti-censorship.
Well put.
Yeah, that's a good point, and I'll add to that we did some things in earlier episodes that were, part of published scenarios, and they were meant to be uncomfortable situations, suicide, underage rape, right? Mm-hmm. The whole My Life scenario was basically ketamine, but specifically raping and killing underage women, and even though that was an uncomfortable subject matter, it was given depth and, like you say, a more of an educational and cathartic handling, in part due to your guys' performances, to counteract that.
Right.
When Roy
we weren't good with it.
Katie Davis's killing herself. There was an emotional resonance there that I think actually helped and played in and all that stuff. In the Hubert situation, it felt gratuitous even as I was doing it, and no pun intended, and there is the absence of emotional resonance. Now, my band-aid for that was to open up the next episode with the creatures being, helpful or cowering and pet-like. And so that, I think that helped ameliorate the uncomfortableness a little bit.
Yeah.
But it's still, even now that I think about it, I'm like, I don't think I really needed to.
Yeah. And after that, after the realization that they were literally just creatures of impulse, it was almost like a dog humping your leg. Or you hear about the people swimming with dolphins, and the dolphins do stuff like that. That's an animal impulse. It's not a malicious event. It's an impulse. So I think that's what changed my thinking around on that particular instant as well, is they're not trying to harm. They're doing what they're doing, just strictly an impulse to do that.
Okay, good point. I think that answers that question. But I do have an adjunct question just to keep monopolizing here. Besides Hubert, who was your favorite NPC in this scenario and why?
Ooh.
I really like, as annoying as he was to Dan, I really enjoyed the guy who ran the hotel.
Yeah, he was good.
Lori?
Yeah. I love that. Especially like the here's a full continental breakfast, but everything is made of blueberry.
Yes. I like that he's out when we get back at night, he's out trying to catch cats.
Yeah, pussy.
Yeah.
With a fishing hook. That was just so wrong.
Yeah. Oh, God. And I think close to that would be the guy with the the informational center. What was his name?
Wilford Brimley?
Yeah. With the oatmeal. Was that oatmeal?
Oatmeal.
Yeah.
First my diabetes. But...
Yeah. Who was your favorite one, Gabe?
I loved Peter Lorre, but I especially liked where I was the only one who knew he was Peter Lorre, and everyone else thought he was someone else. But by far my favorite was Rosita, just because she opened up the doors for chaos.
Yeah.
And anyone that can open up the doors for chaos is a friend of Roy.
Nice.
Enjoyed getting high off of Rosita's stash.
Oh, yeah.
Hi, off my babies.
I'm just sad you never got to wrestle any gators.
Yes. Gators.
But there's always the future.
Wrestle.
All right, you guys got a question?
I do. It's somewhat tangential. We've been talking about, our favorite bits and pieces here and there, but like so far in the entirety of the podcast, whether that be, an episode or an interaction outside, what was the moment where you were like, holy shit, we have a podcast? Like, a lot of people say they're going to do something. When was the moment when it hit you that, we're actually doing something here?
We're doing something?
Yeah.
We're doing something.
I did not give permission to record my voice.
And that was a question for everybody, right?
Yeah.
Let's all talk at once. Ready?
And go.
Patreon money.
Oh, no, that's a valid point.
That's true. It is
that's
valid.
a valid point.
Yep.
I didn't think about that, but yeah, for sure. Once we had validation that people actually listened and were willing to contribute,
right?
Holy crap, that blew my mind.
I think for me, and this is going to sound silly now because where we're actually at, but when we hit like our first 5,000 downloads, I threw a fit. I notified my family. I told everybody, I'm like, people, 5,000 times this has been listened to 5,000 times.
And now it's old hat.
Yeah, well, yeah, we're getting up there. So, I think that's when I really realized that I'm committed to this. I want to push forward and see how far we can go. And it's so much fun to actually have something where you're playing a regular game and you're able to create something that people enjoy, but that you enjoy as well. It's not a job. It's not, you're not working.
Yeah.
You're having a good time with people that you like and you care about. So. Yeah,
I think for me, I mean, there were several instances where I was like, oh my gosh, this is going to be bigger than both of us.
Bigger
But
than
there's four
Jesus.
here.
Bigger than Jesus. Because, excuse me, early on, actually, it was during the first chapter, and I think it was the moment when Dan was doing something, Charles was doing something, and Sam was doing something, and you guys had split up to a certain point, and I was always worried, like, how am I going to be able to handle the pacing when when we have to switch between scene to scene to scene to scene.
Right.
And it sort of came naturally to me. And I was like, oh my God, yeah, and I'm getting the flow of this, and the timing is all good. And you guys are funny, and I don't have to be funny. I can make dad jokes, but you guys are funny. So I'm letting you guys do the thing and having fun with it, and just basically throwing shit in your way to see how much funnier it could be. And so I think it was really early on when I was like, wow, this is cool. And like we kind of know what we're doing. And so once we had the bare bones architecture, then it was a challenge to say, okay, in chapter 2, how can we, change this up a bit? What elements of the podcast can I make? And that's when we started doing like the commercials,
Right?
And we started doing the tales, and building these little components in to extend it beyond just that hour 15 that we recorded. That basically comes down to about 40 minutes. And how can we flex other muscles? Particularly,
I know how I do.
Yeah, particularly since at that point I was using just published scenarios and just sort of, frantically looking up rules and frantically looking up where I was in the scenario itself. And but then once that started becoming second nature in a way, and we sort of streamlined our process, then it was like, okay, what else can we do to make this cool and fun and people want to listen to it, but also want to be part of the family in a way. And that's what gets us to our Patreon stuff.
Yeah.
What about you, Matt? What was your aha moment?
I think I have two. The biggest ones for me was the first time we did Letters from Beyond. When we as we were recording, the first time I heard these strangers on the internet say, "Hey, I listened to your podcast and I love the stuff you guys do. And you guys are really funny and I enjoy it." It was a huge, huge moment for me because, when you're with your friends and you're, goofing off and joking, you're like, oh yeah, we're funny because we know each other. We have, our own like personalized sense of humor. But the fact that the jokes and the riffs and the side things we go on that make us laugh can make other people laugh and make them really enjoy the things we're doing was really big for me. And I think the second point was more recent, was Beer Fest, where you, Ryan, were in line at the porta potty wearing the Lovecraft tape shirt. And I was like, oh, I really like that podcast. And you're like, well, you should. It's like, you're like, yeah, it's or my podcast. And he just, like, this random person that we didn't know at Beer Fest was like, oh my gosh, because he was there meeting us. And it was like, that was absolutely insane for me. Because, it's one thing to have these people writing in through the internet and text, but to meet a real live person who is in front of you and is tangible and is saying, hey, I love you guys and the stuff you do was probably my favorite moment so far.
Yeah, that was really cool. I just really had to pee, so I couldn't talk with him. I'm like, I'll be back. I got to get some...
And then he ran.
No, he talked with Matt for quite a while. He was still out there when I came back out, but...
Yeah,
it was cool.
I was forgotten really about that, but yeah, as soon as you said there's two things, I was like, oh, I bet she's going to say the porta potty thing.
Yeah, I just can't believe all three of us fit in there.
Right?
That's great.
You just have to tap your toe a little bit.
All right, shuffle. I got to go next.
All right, I got a couple more here.
I didn't get to answer.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Gabe. Gabe, sorry, buddy. I thought you were... Yeah, no, sorry.
No, that was a meme.
Okay.
It was money.
Sorry.
I have two. The first time someone threw a bucket at my head because they hated Roy so much. Great. That's but no, in reality it was it was early on. I joined late, so I didn't have all those early experiences. But I remember it was at the end of my life, and
You're dead?
yeah, I'm dead. And I did that whole. You talked about it earlier in this session where I had to break that news, and I remember Jeremy said something. He's like, "Oh, I had like a tear in my eye," and I was
Yeah.
like, "What?" I was like, "I was just doing what I do. Like, I can't be. You gotta have your asshole morality. Can't be a dick all the time." So I was like, "Oh, I can't believe people actually can like feel it when I say things."
Yeah.
And then that was pretty much my moment where I was like, "All right, I'm in the podcast. I see."
Yeah.
Yep.
That's
Yeah, that
cool.
was a definitely a memorable moment. I mean, like I've listened to other podcasts where there have been those sort of like not manufactured moments,
Mhm.
but like you can tell like they're building up to something in a way. Yeah, but I don't know what it was. It's just sort of like maybe because I'm too close to the material. I was like, "Fuck, man, that's heavy."
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it just got me. Plus, I'm a big crybaby anyway, so it doesn't,
Yeah.
But yeah, yours and of course Dan's recording
Mhm.
to Samantha, and I thought there was something that Charles did early on too. That
Yeah, there
but
was something. Yeah.
was there something like
I think
he had to
so.
perform something, and I was
Yep.
really caught off guard because Chuck was always like a gruff kind of guy,
Right.
but then he had to kind of get into a
Yeah, well,
different thing.
we couldn't bother to invite George to this, so we'll never know.
Well, he wasn't in chapter 6, so
Right.
anyways, all right. Speaking of chapter 6, what circumstance caused you to believe your investigator might actually be killed or driven insane in chapter 6?
Oh, I got this.
Yeah, I know. I figured you'd have the easy answer.
Shotgun,
Well, what about Hubert though?
alligator, then shotgun. Hubert, I thought I was done when the question I asked Gabe earlier.
Jumping in the pit.
Yeah, I thought I was going in. I thought that was it.
thought
I'm
you were too.
insane, and I'm trying to put the heads back on, and I played it insane.
Yeah.
I was like, I can't. I got to stay here. This is the way I have to go. That was double insanity right there.
Came down to the die roll.
And if it wasn't for Roy, I would have probably been in that pit, and that would have been it.
Yep.
And then the two of them would have had to go on and miraculously save the day.
Yes.
Dan.
Exactly.
So yeah, that was the twice in one scenario. I've got two characters going down. What am I going to play now? The bat hanging up in the cave or what? Squeak, squeak.
Play the rape monkeys.
Rape monkeys. Fly, my pretties, fly! Don't quit humping, fly!
Wait. Oh.
Roy, how about you?
I mean, yeah, I also thought I was gonna die when he was going insane, because at that moment I was like, oh crap, I'm basically alone. Also, I had a couple actually. When I was ready to die, when I was like doing all that stuff at the pedestal for Bugsy and Petunia, I was like, all right, if I die, that's fine. I can play Bugsy.
Yeah. I love
And
how
then,
you played that.
Another one that really, I mean, it wasn't like an open, oh, I might die here, but in the back of my mind, it was when I was high and I just started wandering around.
Yeah.
I was like, this is something Roy would do,
Yes.
so I have to do it. But in the back of my head, I was like, what if I die? What if this stupid decision is what gets me killed? It's
Fall
so
out the window.
anticlimactic. But I was like, I have to. This is what he would do. He's not going to stick around and be bored.
How about you, Dan?
Yeah, that was just a nerve-wracking scenario.
Yeah.
Because somebody wanted more combat.
No kidding.
I thought I was pretty well screwed when I rolled the insanity die and was suddenly very afraid of plants in the middle of an overgrown cemetery. I'm like, I'm just gonna like stand here because I'm too scared to go anywhere, and the zombies are gonna come eat me.
And then the second roll where it's 10 hours that you have
Yeah.
to be
Yeah,
scared
like,
of.
roll a d10. I'm like 10. What does that mean? You're like, it means you have 10 hours of this. I'm like, and then there was a couple of times where you and me, Brian, were like, it's been what, like 4 or 5 hours? And Jeremy's like, it's been half an hour. And I'm like, God damn it.
We kept trying to push that too.
How is it
It had
only
to have
40
been 7
minutes?
hours right now, right? It's weird enough. Come on.
I was like, it has to be over soon. And then of course there was the whole when I failed the first gunshot roll in the cave.
Mm-hmm.
I was like, okay, I'm gonna have to take him out. First was the whole: do I shoot him or do I shoot the box he's holding?
Mm-hmm.
And that was a really tough moment. And then once I had made that decision, the fact that I failed that roll, I was like, well, and that was the last bullet I had in that magazine. I would have somehow had to reload and then try another shot, and I doubt I would have had the time to do that. So that moment, I was like, well, that's it. We just fumbled our way into ruining the world because this guy's going to let out an old one, and that's the end of reality. No more Lovecraft tapes. Bye-bye.
You wake up in a sweat. It was all a fever dream.
It was all a fever dream. Yeah, unfortunately not in that case. Yeah, I had 3 different endings planned out.
Yeah.
And depending on how that all...
You seem disappointed.
No, I was actually thrilled that it went that way because I did not expect it. I like Matt, I fully expected once that fumble hit that, okay, we're on to these other 2.
Yeah.
And that's going to be that. But then pushing the roll took.
Now, it couldn't have gotten any worse, though. Really.
Yeah.
But if he failed the push,
did the epilogue provide any more insight into what actually happened?
Yeah. Very nice.
Yeah, I thought that'd be a fun way to sort of cap things off.
Mm-hmm.
Even though there's information in that epilogue that you can't necessarily use in the future.
Yep.
But anyways, for those people who are completely caught up, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll be interesting to see how you guys avoid making use of that metagame information.
I had another quick question to go back a little bit in the story. I know we just kind of talked about the ending, but it seemed like you were a little disappointed that we never went to the boat launch or the boat dock area where the Galactomaniac Knights were at.
Mm-hmm.
What did you have planned there? Are you able to tell us? Or
sure, yeah. I mean, essentially, I did utilize what was there, but you see, the thing is, when you first go into the homestead, you basically see those 3 things, right? You see the outbuilding where the concubines are. You see the main farmhouse, which you never went into because circumstances dictated otherwise. And then there's the caverns. Now, it's by design, you're not supposed to find that lake and the house that's next to it hidden behind the tree line.
Okay.
But but if you had searched that way or searched basically the tree line, if you'd had time, and Roy and Dan did have time, but they chose to advance straight to the farmhouse without anything else, without a single spot hidden hole, for instance. But basically that was the other cultist members were over there. And that's who was hooping and hollering and screaming out yig and chanting. And essentially the voices you hear at the end scenario that are behind robed individuals sort of coming in your way. So basically all of that is designed to push you into the caverns. So kind of railroad slightly. But essentially the tales that I did a couple scenarios back where we get to meet one of the cultists who is one of the people who slices their heads in the cavern, right? The 13. It's those people. So it's people that the cult has dredged up, druggies, whatever, rehabilitated or whatever. So that's the house where they're rehabilitating. So you see a bunch of basically like Mad Max Fury Road, all those bald guys are in that house. But also the lake, there's a monster in the lake. There's a whole other little scenario thing there, but it wasn't important, and it certainly you didn't go that way. So I didn't want to railroad you towards that.
Right.
So I just let it go and
through the woods and the tunnel that way. Yeah.
So it was another way to get to the grounds
Right.
through
If we
this
would have taken a
little
boat
creek.
in.
Yeah. And that's how they got Rosita, is they used that and snuck up behind her while she was lodging in the boat, kidnapped
Lodging
her,
in the boat.
took her back. Yes, exactly. Took her back to that place, stowed her boat, blah blah blah. So you know the rest of it.
Cool. Yeah, I was just curious about that.
Yeah, I mean, the whole. I'm trying to think. There may have been one or two other locations, even in Laplace, that you never
Right.
got to. I think I may have even fleshed out a little bit of the John the Bishop's cemetery where the people were missing. The bodies were missing out of the cemetery. You never got that far either.
Yeah.
So it wasn't super important, but you have to like pepper the whole scenario with all these different places that you could get the clues. And by the time you get all the clues, then you're on your way to the next phase, and you don't need to go to the other places. So
instead, we just went insane and went to the next phase.
So,
well, like we're gonna leave the cemetery and come back some other time. We're just gonna go right there.
We could leave. Somebody was afraid of plants, and I saw the exact path that we needed to take, so it didn't matter.
Right. Any other questions, guys?
I think I'm spent.
Okay, Matthew.
Here's one. As much as we all love Call of Cthulhu, are there any other systems that you would think it might be interesting to explore? Maybe as a one shot for the podcast, or just in general. Is there an RPG system out there that you have played a little bit of, or haven't had any chance whatsoever to try, that you were like, you know what, that might be kind of fun?
That's a great question. And I've been thinking about this more and more, only because I'm listening to more and more podcasts that are running different systems. Like, for instance, I just started listening to Wheel or Woe, which is running Pathfinder playtest. It's a slightly modified version of Pathfinder. But I haven't listened to it enough to be like, oh my gosh, that sounds great. And I'm just not interested that much in a fantasy world. I played D&D for decades, and I sort of got that out of my system, and so I'm not real anxious to jump straight into it. Although I will say I'm more inclined to look at something that is completely computerized, like is it D&D Beyond? Is everything's all computerized.
Digital system, yeah.
Ooh.
But again, I'm having way more fun doing story-based stuff and minimizing the system itself as much as I possibly can. But that's just my inclination as a fiction writer and a storyteller. I just would rather tell the stories and let those minimal mechanics come to play when it's absolutely necessary.
Right.
I don't want to get bogged down. I think we've learned even in this podcast that sometimes giving you an exact map is detrimental to the storytelling.
Yeah.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
I think we saw a little bit of that in a Hell House, which I think was necessary to have the house built out in such a fashion. But it was always way more fun to just sort of describe things in a general term and give you just enough to get you moving in a particular direction, rather than saying 20 feet in front of you is a torch. I just,
and you don't always need to put a big red X on the spot you want us to end up.
Pirate treasure here. So that's my
page 42.
I don't know. How do you guys feel, Gabe? I know, because you guys play D&D too, don't you?
We'd never really got into that campaign.
Okay.
Our DM had issues.
I have a lot that I could play. A couple we talked about earlier. I love Vampire the Masquerade, just because I love playing as a vampire and stuff like that. But I also, I like fantasy. It's probably my favorite to roleplay, and Pathfinder's my favorite. So that, but a very underrated one is Traveler. I don't know. I've only ever heard it pronounced by my idiot friends who I play it with. So, but I think that's the best sci-fi one that there is, and I love sci-fi.
Yeah.
So that's a very fun one. And then the GURP system is awesome because you can mix. I play a lot of GURPS Zombies, but you can mix and match any number of those books together and just create like the wackiest universe you can imagine. I'm a loser. I didn't.
No, you're not.
I play a lot of these.
It's fine. I mean, but when I was your age, I had the energy to do it too, and I know that now
You need a blue pill.
I've slowed down to a certain extent where I'm like, I don't have the time for this.
Yeah.
And I also know that I'm very not obsessive compulsive, but when I get into something, I like to get deep into it, and I like to get all the shit to it, and I like to buy all the crap for it, and I prevent myself from doing that, much the same way that I prevent myself from watching TV series, for instance, because I'll just blaze through it or get on the bandwagon for it. So I just say, nope, I'm not doing that, and I have to prevent myself. How about you, Matt? Is there any system that you're like, oh my god, I gotta play this?
A couple actually. There's a YouTube channel I follow, a guy named Puffin Forest, who does a lot of D&D related content in terms of, talking about his experiences and how he DMs and stuff like that. But he has a couple of stories from a system that I think would be really fun called Icons, which is a very superhero themed system where he's like, he ran a game in that system where it was more science fiction fantasy, where it was, the apocalyptic future where these, the world has been taken over by robots and whatnot, and instead of paladins and whatnot, you have superheroes running around. And there's, just from what I've been able to look into, a super flexible system. It looks like there's a lot you can do in terms of developing characters and having fun with being able to fly or run really fast, which I think would be really cool to make like your own, or try and make your own superhero and kind of explore the whole thing of I'm so much more powerful than everyone else, what do I do with that? And the second being with more recent news events with CD Projekt Red. I think it'd be interesting to get into the original Cyberpunk series. Go back to that system, especially with 2077 coming out sometime eventually, maybe. From what I've seen, it looks the video game Cyberpunk 2077 looks really cool, and it makes me kind of want to go back to the RPG system that it's based on and give that a shot, because Cyberpunk has always been super interesting to me. So to be able to take some time in that world would be kind of cool.
So you like Saints Row 3?
Yeah. Spent a lot of time in Saints Row 3.
Not me.
Cool. Well, I've just got 2 more questions. You guys have anything more?
Brian, do you miss Flo the waitress all the time?
It was more of a fling than anything. Plus, I got free burgers after, so that was just the burps.
I think you mean GURPS.
Yes, I do.
It's a whole system.
And I'm trying to flirt with somebody in every season, every episode. Sorry, my motorcycle just drove by.
Did you,
my motorcycle.
That squirrel's getting bigger.
You flirted with the shotgun in the last one?
I did.
Oh,
Kissy.
I got that load.
Oh, to his chest, neck.
we're
All
back.
over my lower phone.
Great. So that actually leads into one of my questions.
Ew.
Now that Samantha is absolutely irrevocably dead,
That you know of.
what did you initially think happened to her at the beginning of the scenario?
Oh. I honestly thought that she might have found her way into wherever to find her dad. I honestly thought that's where she was at. That's why the disappearance, like he mysteriously just disappeared. Some of the clues that were given throughout some of our scenarios, the alleyway, hearing the voices, seeing the flyer and stuff like that. I thought that she might pop back out at some point, having found the power and the way to get to where she needs to be at any time. I honestly thought that that's what it would be. It was a little bit of a shock, and I was still, until just now, hoping that maybe part of her was somewhere, but yeah, that's sad.
What about you guys? What do you think happened to Samantha when you first started chapter 6?
I honestly thought that she had gone so far into those books that she had just legitimately gone insane and like gone off the deep end and was, God knows where in the world, on a street corner with a cup mumbling to herself about time travel and spells and
Ooh, I
and
like
how
that.
she had magic powers and had a tentacle for an arm.
Made $130 one day.
Technical jobs all day long.
Moved to Japan.
I'm a billionaire. Oh, funny.
Gabe, did you think anything?
I kind of thought that she still might be in me a little,
Yeah.
and we could do like a whole multiple personality type thing where we just get in fights over who has control over the body.
Well, that's actually my very last question. Did Roy like it when Samantha was inside him, stirring feelings for Dan? And why didn't you play that up a bit more?
I didn't know how. Like I
You don't
I
flirt with
struggled.
men?
Well, no, it's like I struggled to find places where it would seem natural to put it. Just
Excuse
because
me?
I guess, yeah. I guess I just like I don't know how to flirt in general, so I just kind of
Oh, you're doing a good job right now. I mean,
Yeah.
come on,
Oh,
look at
yeah.
those eyes. Those puffy lips.
when I had to force it in, I didn't. Oh yeah,
Going in
These
dry,
are
man.
intentional.
Incoming!
It was really hard.
Yeah, we know.
And
I don't know.
long.
I struggled to I just kind of struggled to find places that it wouldn't seem out of left field and just derail the whole scene.
Oh,
So it's not like I didn't want to play it up more. I'm not great. So
Well, plus Roy's not exactly a subtle character.
right.
yeah, exactly. I figured if I did it, it would just give everything away and ruin anything that was there.
Oh, I just wanted to. Well, but you guys had a moment back in the Hell House scenario where you're lying on top of each other,
Yes.
breathing heavily. I sort of wanted that thing to happen again. I thought that would be great.
Missed you.
I miss you.
What?
And you were
It's
like,
get off me.
Roy leaned in for the kiss.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. Okay, well that's it. We've answered all the questions in the world, so there are no more
I have
problems.
wait, I have one more.
Oh, yeah, go ahead.
When how long until the Patreon payers get to hear our original test grounds with Jesse McCree and Flex Rumble Crunch?
Oh.
I don't know who those are, so I don't know. Might be a while.
Playing McCree was fun.
It was fun. Our test round.
It was really fun just to build totally unhinged, off-the-wall, crazy characters. Like parodying somebody from a fairly popular video game.
Parodying, taking everything about him, including his name.
Yeah, that's how they do it nowadays, right?
Is it just the whole podcast going, it's high noon?
It is?
I don't know.
Shit. I gotta get
Bro,
back
it's
to work.
satire, I swear.
Swear to God, don't sue me.
Fairy Hughes.
All right, guys. Well, I think that's going to do it for tonight. We thank everybody out there for watching and listening, especially Keith, who
Thank you.
helped us keep engaged on the chat.
Yep.
And
Thanks, Keith.
if you guys have any questions at all, anytime about any of our stuff, please join us on social media. I'm at Lovecraft Tapes anytime on Twitter.
What
All
was
right,
that?
I love tapes on Twitter too.
I'm loving the tapes, man.
I'm at lovetampscom.twitter.
Gross. Oh,
Come on Twitter,
times.
see me.
Yeah, come on over. It's
Don't
easy
at
to
me.
find me. You gotta twit my face.
And you can find these guys at
Facebook. Brian Podcast on Twitter. And Discord.
Yeah. We also have a Discord.
You're welcome.
But if you're looking for me on Twitter, I'm at The Real Weird Kid.
And I've been told that I need to have more social media engagement by the boss, so I'm at Lovecraft Gabe.
All right. Thanks for listening. And until next time, stay tuned for Chapter 7, Bloodline.
Bum, bum, bum.
Opening soon in a vein near you.
Oh.
All right, stopping the broadcast.